Imagine pulling an ordinary penny from your pocket, the kind you've seen 1,000 times, and discovering it could be worth thousands, sometimes even tens of thousands of dollars. It sounds impossible, but for some people, that exact moment has already happened. And it all starts with one small detail most people never notice on a 1944 Lincoln penny. This coin is known as the 1944 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, and at first glance it looks completely normal. It shows the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln on the front, just like millions of other pennies. But behind the simple appearance is a story shaped by war, metal shortages, and a few rare mistakes that turned everyday pocket change into prize collectibles. To understand why this penny matters, we have to go back to the year 1944. The United States was deeply involved in World War II. Factories were running nonstop, soldiers were overseas, and nearly every resource was carefully managed. Copper was in high demand for ammunition and military equipment. Because of that, the government had already made a dramatic change in 1943, producing pennies from steel instead of copper. By 1944, conditions shifted again. The U.S. government decided to return to copper-based pennies, but with a twist. Instead of using newly mined copper, the metal came largely from recycled military shell casings. These shell casings had been fired in training and combat, then collected and melted down. That means the 1944 Lincoln penny is literally made from metal that once played a role in the war effort. These pennies were produced by the United States Mint in several locations. Coins made in Philadelphia did not include a mint mark, which is why this coin is called a no-mint mark penny. At the time, no one thought twice about that detail. These coins were meant to be spent, saved in jars, or dropped between couch cushions, not carefully preserved for collectors. The design itself is classic and familiar. On the front, Lincoln faces right, a design originally introduced in 1909 to honor his 100th birthday. It was the first time a real person appeared on a circulating U.S. coin. On the back, you'll see two wheat stalks framing the words 1 cent and United States of America. This is why collectors often call it a wheat penny. The metal composition of the 1944 penny is one of its most interesting features. It is mostly copper with small amounts of tin and zinc. This gives it a warm, reddish tone when well preserved. However, because the metal came from recycled sources, the exact composition could vary slightly from batch to batch. That subtle variation helped create some of the rare errors collectors search for today. Now here's where things get exciting. While most 1944 pennies were made from copper, a very small number were accidentally struck on leftover steel planchets from 1943. These steel pennies were never supposed to exist in 1944. When they do appear, they are among the rarest and most valuable Lincoln cents ever discovered. A genuine 1944 steel penny can sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars, and in some cases, even more. Even among the normal copper versions, value can vary widely. Condition matters a lot. A heavily worn 1944 no-mint mark penny might be worth only a few cents above face value. But one that looks nearly new with sharp details and original color can be worth significantly more. Coins graded in top condition by professional services can sell for hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Collectors also look closely for errors. These include doubled letters, off-center strikes, or cracks in the metal. A double die error, where parts of the design appear slightly doubled, can dramatically increase value. These mistakes happened during the fast-paced wartime production process, when speed often mattered more than perfection. Real auction results show just how wide the price range can be. Some high-grade 1944 no-mint mark pennies have sold for several $1,000s at major auctions. The rare steel versions have reached six-figure prices. Even error coins with unusual features can attract fierce bidding from collectors who know how rare they are. Because of these high values, fakes and altered coins are common. One of the most common tricks is plating a normal copper penny with a silver-colored metal to make it look like steel. Another is altering the date on a 1943 steel penny to look like 1944. That's why proper identification is so important. A simple magnet test can help as a first step. Copper pennies are not magnetic, but steel pennies are. If a 1944 penny sticks to a magnet, that's a sign it could be something special. Weight is another clue. Steel pennies are lighter than copper ones. However, these tests alone are not enough to confirm authenticity. Professional grading and authentication are essential for valuable examples. Experts use precise measurements, microscopes, and metal analysis to determine whether a coin is genuine. If you think you found something rare, getting it professionally examined can protect you from disappointment and confirm its true worth. There are also some fun and surprising facts about this coin. Because the copper came from recycled shell casings, some people like to say the 1944 penny is a symbol of peace, turning tools of war into everyday money. Millions of Americans carried these pennies in their pockets during the final years of the war, often without realizing their unique origin. Another interesting detail is how long these coins stayed in circulation. Many 1944 pennies continued to be used well into the 1960s and 1970s. By then, most were worn smooth, which makes high-quality survivors even more desirable today. Collectors love the 1944 no-mint mark Lincoln penny because it connects history, rarity, and possibility. It represents a moment when the nation was under pressure, adapting to shortages while still producing something as simple as a 1-cent coin. Every example tells a small story about that era. For new collectors, this penny is especially appealing because it's still possible to find one in old collections, inherited jars, or forgotten coin albums. While finding a rare error or steal version is extremely unlikely, the chance is not zero. That sense of possibility keeps people searching. Even if you never find a six-figure rarity, owning a 1944 Lincoln penny is like holding a small piece of American history in your hand. It's a reminder that even ordinary objects can carry extraordinary stories, waiting quietly to be noticed. So the next time you see a simple brown penny with the date 1944 and no mint mark, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a closer look. Check the weight, test it with a magnet, and notice the details. That unassuming coin might have traveled through wartime America, passed from hand to hand, and survived decades to reach you. And who knows? The penny you overlook today could be the discovery that changes how you see the coins in your pocket forever. What if the penny sitting quietly in a jar or drawer right now was born in one of the most important rebuilding years in American history? And what if that ordinary-looking coin carried a story far bigger than 1 cent? Today, we're uncovering the hidden story behind the 1948 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin that many people overlook, but collectors never forget. The 1948 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is a 1-cent coin produced in the United States just 3 years after World War II ended. At first glance, it looks simple and familiar. It features the iconic profile of Abraham Lincoln on the front, just like many other pennies. But behind that familiar design lies a moment in history when America was rebuilding, redefining itself, and quietly striking millions of coins that would one day spark curiosity among collectors. To understand this penny, we need to step back into the year 1948. The United States was adjusting to peacetime after years of global conflict. Factories that once produced weapons were shifting back to consumer goods. Soldiers were returning home, families were growing, and the economy was transforming. Everyday objects, even coins, reflected this transition. The 1948 Lincoln penny was part of that new chapter, produced to support a growing population and an expanding economy. These pennies were struck at the Philadelphia Mint. Coins made in Philadelphia during this time did not carry a mint mark, which is why this coin is known as the 1948 no mint mark penny. The absence of a mint mark doesn't mean something is missing or wrong. It simply tells us where the coin was made. Philadelphia was the main mint of the country, and it produced enormous quantities of coins to keep commerce flowing. The Lincoln penny design itself already had a long history by 1948. It was first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. This made it the first regular U.S. coin to feature a real historical person instead of a symbolic figure. By 1948, Americans had grown up seeing Lincoln's face in their pockets, and that familiarity helped make the penny a symbol of stability during uncertain times. On the front of the coin, Lincoln's portrait faces to the right. Above his head is the word liberty, and in front of his face is the motto, "In God We Trust." Below is the year, 1948. The design is clean, balanced, and dignified, reflecting Lincoln's role in American history. The reverse side features 2 wheat stalks framing the words 1 cent and United States of America, with E pluribus unum across the top. This is why collectors often call it a wheat penny. The metal composition of the 1948 no-mint mark penny is especially important. Unlike wartime pennies made of steel or experimental metals, this coin returned to a more traditional mix. It is composed of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. That high copper content gives the coin its warm reddish color when new, and over time, it tones into brown shades that collectors closely examine. Now, let's talk about why this penny gets attention from collectors. On the surface, it might seem common. After all, tens of millions were produced. But value in coin collecting is not just about how many were made. It's about condition, survival, and small variations that escaped notice at the time. Most 1948 pennies were heavily used. They bought newspapers, candy, bus rides, and groceries. Over decades of circulation, many became scratched, worn, or damaged. Finding one today in excellent condition, especially with original mint luster, is far more difficult than it sounds. Collectors also look for errors and varieties. Some 1948 no-mint mark pennies show minor die cracks, off-center strikes, or double details caused by worn or misaligned dies. These errors were accidental and often went unnoticed when the coins were released. Today, those same mistakes can significantly increase a coin's desirability. Color is another major factor. Collectors classify copper pennies as red, red-brown, or brown. A fully red 1948 penny, meaning it retains most of its original copper color, is far rarer than a brown one. Time and air naturally darken copper, so bright red examples are usually coins that were carefully stored and never circulated. When it comes to real-world values, the difference condition makes is dramatic. A worn 1948 no-mint mark penny might be worth only a few cents over face value. But a well-preserved example can be a completely different story. Coins graded in high mint state condition by professional grading services have sold for hundreds of dollars at auction and top grades, especially those with strong red color and sharp details. Some 1948 pennies have crossed the $1,000 mark. These are not everyday finds, but they prove that even a common-date penny can become valuable when preserved under the right circumstances. Collectors trust professional grading companies to authenticate and evaluate coins. These organizations examine the coin's surface, strike quality, color, and wear, then assign a grade that helps determine market value. For serious collectors, a graded 1948 penny offers confidence and credibility. Of course, with value comes the risk of fakes and altered coins. Fortunately, the 1948 no-mint mark penny is relatively easy to authenticate if you know what to look for. First, check the weight. A genuine copper penny from this era weighs about 3.11 grams. A significant difference could indicate a problem. Next, examine the edges. Authentic pennies have smooth edges with no seams. Look closely at the date and lettering. Altered coins sometimes show signs of tampering, such as uneven numbers or strange textures around the year. Magnification helps reveal important details. Under a simple magnifying glass, the lettering on a real coin should appear crisp, even if worn. Blurry or inconsistent shapes can be a red flag. If a coin seems unusually valuable, professional authentication is always the safest option. Beyond value, the 1948 penny carries some fascinating details. It represents the final years of the wheat penny design, which would be replaced in 1959 by the Lincoln Memorial Reverse. That makes it part of the closing chapter of a beloved era in U.S. coinage. It also reflects a moment when America was redefining itself. This penny passed through hands during the early days of television, suburban growth, and the baby boom. Each coin silently witnessed everyday life during a period of optimism and change. Collectors today love the 1948 no-mint mark Lincoln penny because it sits at the intersection of history, affordability, and challenge. It's old enough to feel historic, yet still possible to find without extraordinary luck. For beginners, it offers an accessible entry into wheat penny collecting. For experienced collectors, finding a high-grade example becomes a rewarding hunt. There's also something deeply personal about this coin. Many people discover them in inherited collections, old piggy banks, or jars saved by parents and grandparents. Holding a 1948 penny is like holding a small piece of someone else's everyday life from decades ago. As interest in tangible history grows, coins like this continue to gain appreciation. They remind us that history isn't only found in museums or textbooks. Sometimes, it's hiding in plain sight, disguised as spare change, so the next time you come across a simple brown penny dated 1948, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a closer look. Check the details. Think about where it's been and what it's seen, because that small copper coin may be carrying far more value, history, and intrigue than you ever expected. And who knows, the most unassuming penny in your collection today might be the one that starts your journey into the fascinating world of American coin history tomorrow. What if the penny sitting forgotten in a jar or drawer wasn't ordinary at all, but a quiet survivor of Cold War America, carrying a story far bigger than its 1 cent face value? Today we're talking about the 1951 D-Mint Mark Lincoln penny, a coin most people overlook, yet one that connects directly to a tense moment in American history, massive industrial change, and a generation that rebuilt the nation after World War II. This small copper coin may look simple, but its story is anything but. The 1951 D. Lincoln penny is a 1-cent coin produced by the United States Mint and struck at the Denver Mint, identified by the small letter D beneath the date. It features the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front and the classic wheat ears design on the back. To many, it looks just like countless other old pennies. To collectors, it represents a specific moment in time that can never be repeated. To understand this coin, we have to step back into the year 1951. America was only 6 years removed from the end of World War II. Soldiers had returned home, factories had shifted from wartime production, and the nation was rapidly changing. At the same time, the Cold War was heating up, the Korean War was underway, and metal resources were once again under pressure. Every coin produced had a purpose beyond simple pocket change. In 1951, the U.S. economy was booming, but uncertainty lingered. The government needed massive amounts of copper for military equipment, electrical wiring, and infrastructure. Pennies were still being made primarily from copper, and the demand for coins remained high as the population grew and commerce expanded. That year, the United States Mint struck over 625 million Lincoln pennies across all mints. Of those, about 136 million were produced at the Denver Mint. The Denver Mint played a crucial role in supplying coins to the western United States. Unlike the Philadelphia Mint, which produced coins without a mint mark, Denver coins carried a D to show their origin. That tiny letter is one of the most important details on the 1951 Lincoln penny, because it tells us exactly where it was made and helps collectors determine scarcity and value. The design of the 1951 D penny follows the Lincoln wheat cent style, first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. The front shows Lincoln's right-facing portrait, designed by Victor David Brenner. Around it are the words "In God We Trust, Liberty," and the date 1951. Beneath the date sits the small D mint mark. On the reverse, 2 wheat stalks frame the words 1 cent and United States of America, with E pluribus unum across the top. This wheat design symbolized prosperity and agricultural strength, values that resonated deeply with Americans rebuilding their lives in the early 1950s. The metal composition of the 1951 D penny is another key feature. It is made of 95% copper and 5% zinc and tin. This gives the coin its warm reddish-brown tone when new. Over time, exposure to air and handling caused most examples to turn brown, which is why fully red specimens are far more desirable today. At first glance, the 1951 D penny does not seem rare. Millions were minted and many still exist. However, rarity in coin collecting is not just about how many were made. It's about how many survived in high-quality condition. Most of these pennies were heavily used in everyday transactions. They passed through countless hands, were dropped, scratched, and worn down over decades. As a result, truly pristine examples are surprisingly scarce. Condition is everything. A 1951 D penny with heavy wear might be worth only a few cents. But a well-preserved coin, especially one that still shows its original red copper color, can be worth significantly more. Coins graded in mint state, meaning they were never circulated, are where collector interest really begins. Another reason collectors pay attention to the 1951 D penny is the presence of minting errors. While this issue is not famous for major varieties like double dies, small errors do exist. These include off-center strikes, weak or missing mint marks, clipped planchets, and die cracks. Error coins were accidents, never meant to leave the mint, which makes them fascinating and often valuable. Some collectors search rolls of old pennies hoping to find one of these errors. A clearly visible off-center strike or dramatic die crack on a 1951 D penny can sell for many times the value of a normal example, depending on how noticeable the error is and how well the coin is preserved. When it comes to real-world values, auction records tell an interesting story. Circulated examples typically sell for a few cents to a couple of dollars. But high-grade coins are a different story. A 1951 D penny graded mint state 67 red by a major grading service has sold at auction for several $1,000s. These top-tier examples are rare because so few coins survived without wear, spots, or color changes. Collectors are willing to pay strong prices because these coins represent the absolute best of what was produced in 1951. They are time capsules, frozen in the condition they left the mint more than 70 years ago. Even mint state 65 red examples, which are more attainable, often sell for hundreds of dollars. Of course, value always depends on authenticity. Knowing how to identify a real 1951 D penny is essential. First, check the weight. A genuine coin should weigh about 3.11 grams. Significant deviations may indicate damage or a counterfeit. Next, examine the mint mark. The D should look natural and properly aligned beneath the date, not scratched in or oddly shaped. The color and texture also matter. Genuine copper pennies have a specific look and feel. Many fake coins are cast rather than struck, resulting in soft details and uneven surfaces. The edges of a real penny should be smooth, with no visible seams. Using a magnet can also help, since genuine copper pennies are not magnetic. One surprising fact about the 1951 D penny is how often it was saved by the public. During the early 1950s, many Americans began saving wheat pennies simply because they looked different from newer coins. This habit preserved more examples than might otherwise exist, but most of those saved coins were already circulated, limiting their condition. Another fun detail is that the wheat penny design ended just 7 years later, in 1958. In 1959, the Lincoln Memorial replaced the wheat stalks on the reverse. That means the 1951 D penny is part of the final chapter of a beloved design that lasted nearly half a century. Collectors today love the 1951 D penny because it sits at the crossroads of history and accessibility. It's old enough to feel historic, tied to a dramatic era in American life, yet common enough that new collectors can realistically find one. It offers an affordable entry point into serious coin collecting while still leaving room for the thrill of hunting high-grade or error examples. There is also nostalgia involved. Many collectors remember seeing wheat pennies in circulation as children or hearing stories from parents and grandparents who used them daily. Holding a 1951 D penny can feel like holding a piece of family history, a reminder of lunch counters, jukeboxes, and corner stores from a very different America. The appeal of this coin isn't about instant riches. It's about the story, the hunt, and the connection to the past. Each scratch and mark tells a tale of where that penny has been and how it was used. And for the lucky few who find a pristine or unusual example, it's proof that even the smallest coin can hold surprising value. So the next time you come across an old jar of pennies or receive one as change, take a closer look. That small D beneath the date might belong to a coin struck during a pivotal moment in U.S. history. A coin that traveled through decades of American life to reach you today. And who knows, the humble 1951 D Lincoln penny you almost ignored might just be the start of a deeper curiosity, leading you into the fascinating world of rare coins, hidden stories, and forgotten treasures still waiting to be discovered. Imagine finding a single penny in an old jar, a penny that looks ordinary at first glance, but quietly carries the story of post-war America, hidden value, and a surprising place in coin collecting history. What if that small copper coin from 1952 could be worth far more than 1 cent today? Stay with me because this is the kind of coin many people overlook, yet collectors pay close attention to. The coin we're talking about today is the 1952 mint mark Lincoln penny. At first, it seems like just another old penny. It's small, brown or reddish, and familiar. But behind that simple appearance is a story tied to American history, careful craftsmanship, and a mint that produced fewer coins than many others. This penny was made in 1952, just a few years after World War II. America was changing fast. Soldiers had returned home, families were growing, and the economy was shifting into a new era of industry and consumer life. Coins like this one were part of everyday transactions used to buy newspapers, candy, or a cup of coffee. The San Francisco Mint, marked by the small letter S below the date, produced this coin to help meet the country's need for everyday money. BY 1952. The Lincoln cent design had already been in use for over 4 decades. It was first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of Abraham Lincoln. That made it the first regularly circulating U.S. coin to feature a real person. By the early 1950s, Americans were deeply familiar with Lincoln's profile on the front of the penny. It symbolized honesty, unity, and the nation's past. The 1952's Lincoln penny is made mostly of copper. At that time, pennies were about 95% copper, with small amounts of zinc and tin mixed in. This gives the coin its warm reddish color when new. Over time, many of these pennies darken to brown, depending on how they were stored and handled. That color change plays a big role in how collectors judge value today. On the front of the coin, you see Lincoln facing right. Above his head is the word Liberty, and behind him is the date, 1952. Below the date, if you look closely, is the small S mint mark. This tiny letter is one of the most important details on the entire coin. On the back, you'll find the Lincoln Memorial, which had replaced the earlier wheat design just a few years earlier in 1959. Wait, correction there is important. In 1952, the penny still had the wheat ears design on the reverse, not the Lincoln Memorial. 2 wheat stalks frame the words 1 cent and United States of America, with the motto E pluribus unum across the top. That wheat design is a favorite among collectors. It represents America's agricultural roots and the idea of growth and abundance. For many people, wheat pennies feel more historic and nostalgic than modern pennies. Now, you might wonder why the 1952's penny gets special attention. The main reason is its mint location and production numbers. The San Francisco Mint produced far fewer pennies in 1952 compared to the Philadelphia and Denver mints. Lower production doesn't automatically mean extreme rarity, but it does make surviving examples more interesting, especially in high-quality condition. Most 1952's pennies were heavily used. They passed through countless hands, pockets, and cash registers. Because of that, many are worn down, scratched, or darkened. Finding one today that still looks sharp, with clear details and original color, is not easy. That scarcity in high-grade condition is what drives collector demand. Another factor is mint errors. While the 1952's penny is not famous for a single dramatic error like some other years, small errors do exist. These can include off-center strikes, weak strikes where details look faded, or doubled features caused during the minting process. Error coins are always interesting because they show what can go wrong when millions of coins are produced at high speed. Collectors are especially drawn to examples with strong strikes. The San Francisco Mint sometimes produced coins with softer details compared to other mints. If you find a 1952's penny where Lincoln's hair and facial features are crisp and the wheat stalks on the back are sharp, that's a good sign. So how valuable is this penny today? In heavily worn condition, a 1952's penny is usually worth a few cents to $1. That might not sound exciting, but condition changes everything. A well-preserved example with minimal wear can be worth several dollars. If the coin still has a strong red color, rather than brown, values can rise significantly. At auctions, high-grade examples certified by professional grading services have sold for impressive amounts. Some top-condition red examples have sold for hundreds of dollars. These are coins that look almost as if they just left the mint, with bright color and no major flaws. That's what collectors compete for. The key takeaway is that most people who own a 1952's penny don't own a rare one, but a small percentage of these coins are truly special. Those are the ones that bring strong prices and attention. Because valuable coins attract interest, fakes and altered coins do exist. One common trick is adding an S mint mark to a penny from another mint. To protect yourself, always look closely at the mint mark. On genuine coins, the S looks clean and well-shaped, not scratched or glued on. The surface around it should match the rest of the coin. Weight is another clue. A real 1952 penny should weigh about 3.11 grams. Significant differences could mean something is wrong. The metal should also be non-magnetic, since copper pennies do not stick to magnets. If a coin seems unusually perfect or unusually valuable, professional authentication is a smart step. Coin grading services can confirm whether a penny is genuine and assign it a grade that helps determine its market value. There are also some fun and surprising facts about this coin. In 1952, a gallon of gas cost around 27 cents. That means 10 pennies could buy you nearly half a gallon of gas. Imagine what everyday life looked like when this coin was new. Another interesting detail is that many 1952's pennies spent decades sitting in jars, drawers, and piggy banks. People didn't think much about saving pennies back then. As a result, many high-quality examples were lost to circulation, making the survivors more desirable today. Collectors love the 1952's Lincoln penny because it sits at an intersection of history and accessibility. It's old enough to feel historic, but common enough that people can realistically find one. It's a coin that invites curiosity. You don't need to be wealthy to start looking for it, but you need patience and a good eye. This penny also represents the final years of the wheat cent era. Just a few years later, the design would change, marking the end of a long chapter in American coinage. Holding a 1952's penny is like holding a small piece of that closing chapter. Today, collectors search through rolls, collections, and estate finds hoping to uncover a clean example. The thrill comes from knowing that a single detail, like color or sharpness, can transform a simple penny into a prized collectible. So the next time you come across an old penny, don't dismiss it too quickly. Look at the date. Look for the mint mark. Look at the condition. That small copper coin might be carrying a story and possibly a value that's been hiding in plain sight for decades. The 1952's Lincoln penny reminds us that history doesn't always come in grand forms. Sometimes, it fits in the palm of your hand, quietly waiting to be noticed. And who knows, the next one you find could be the start of a deeper journey into the fascinating world of American coins. Imagine reaching into a jar of old pennies and pulling out a small copper coin that looks ordinary, yet quietly carries the story of post-war America, booming industry, and the early days of modern coin collecting. That is exactly what the 1954 D Mint Mark Lincoln penny represents, and by the end of this video, you may never look at a simple penny the same way again. The 1954 D Lincoln penny is a 1-cent coin struck in the United States during the middle of the 20th century. The small letter D under the date tells us it was made at the Denver Mint, one of the country's most important coin-producing facilities. At first glance, this penny looks like countless others, but its value and appeal depend on history, condition, and a few surprising details that collectors pay close attention to. To understand this coin, we need to step back into the year 1954. America was in a period of growth and optimism following World War II. Families were moving to suburbs, factories were busy, and everyday commerce depended heavily on small change. Pennies were used constantly for groceries, newspapers, and public transportation. The United States Mint needed massive quantities of cents, and the Denver Mint was working at full speed to meet that demand. Millions of 1954 D pennies were struck to keep the economy moving. The design of the coin had already become familiar to Americans. The front shows a portrait of Abraham Lincoln, a design first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of his birth. By 1954, this image had been in circulation for decades, making it one of the most recognized faces in American history. The words Liberty appear to the left of Lincoln's profile, while the date and the motto "In God We Trust" appear around him. On the back of the coin, you'll find 2 wheat stalks framing the words 1 cent and United States of America. This is why collectors often call it a wheat penny. The wheat design symbolized America's agricultural strength and remained in use until 1958. In 1959, the reverse design would change forever, making coins like the 1954 D part of the final era of wheat pennies. The metal composition of this penny is another important detail. It is made mostly of copper, about 95%, with the remaining portion consisting of tin and zinc. This gives the coin its warm reddish-brown color when new. Over time, circulation and exposure to air cause the color to darken, which collectors describe as red, red-brown, or brown. Color plays a major role in determining value today. So why do people talk about the 1954 D penny at all if millions were made? The answer lies in condition and in small imperfections that occurred during the minting process. While the coin itself is not rare in a general sense, high-quality examples are surprisingly hard to find. Most of these pennies were heavily used in daily transactions, which led to wear, scratches, and fading. Finding one that still looks close to how it did in 1954 can be a challenge. Collectors pay special attention to mint state coins, meaning pennies that were never used in circulation. A 1954 D penny with sharp details, full luster, and minimal marks can be worth many times more than a worn example. Coins with strong original red color are especially desirable, as copper naturally darkens over time. Preserving that bright red appearance for decades is rare. Errors are another reason this penny attracts attention. During the minting process, mistakes sometimes happened. Some 1954 D pennies show weak strikes, where parts of the design appear faint. Others may have die cracks, small lines caused by damaged minting equipment. There are also examples with repunched mint marks, where the D was stamped more than once, creating a slightly doubled appearance. These errors are not common, and collectors actively search for them. Now let's talk about real-world values. In average circulated condition, a 1954 D penny is usually worth only a small amount above face value. However, when condition improves, the story changes. Uncirculated examples often sell for several dollars, and those graded at the highest levels by professional grading services can sell for much more. At major coin auctions, top-quality 1954 D pennies with full red color have sold for hundreds or even thousands of dollars, depending on demand and overall eye appeal. Collectors often watch auction results from organizations and events connected to the United States Mint and major numismatic auction houses to track how values change over time. These results show that while the coin is common, exceptional examples are fiercely competed for. This is what makes the 1954 D penny exciting. It rewards patience, knowledge, and a careful eye. Identifying a genuine 1954 D penny is usually straightforward, but it is still important to be cautious. First, check the date and the mint mark. The D should appear just below the date on the front of the coin. The font should match known authentic examples, with clean edges and proper spacing. Counterfeit pennies do exist, though they are rare, and they often show unusual weight, incorrect color, or poorly defined details. A real 1954 D penny should weigh about 3.11 grams. If you have a precise scale, this can help confirm authenticity. The edge should be smooth, not reeded, and the coin should not stick to a magnet, since copper is not magnetic. If something feels off, professional coin dealers or grading services can provide verification. There are also a few fun and surprising facts tied to this coin. In 1954, the average cost of a movie ticket in the United States was less than $1, and a loaf of bread cost just a few cents. This means the penny played a much bigger role in everyday life than it does today. Children could buy candy, newspapers, or small toys with just a handful of these coins. Another interesting detail is that the Denver Mint was known for producing strong, well-struck coins during this era. Because of this, collectors sometimes compare 1954 pennies from different mints and notice subtle differences in detail and overall appearance. The Denver issues often show bold features, which adds to their appeal when found in high grade. Collectors love the 1954 D penny because it sits at a crossroads of history and accessibility. It is old enough to feel historical, yet common enough that many people still find one in inherited collections or old jars. It serves as an entry point into coin collecting, teaching new collectors about grading, mint marks, and the importance of condition. For experienced collectors, the challenge lies in upgrading. They may already own a 1954 D penny, but they are always searching for a better example, one with richer color, fewer marks, or a subtle error. This constant pursuit keeps the market active and the coin relevant. As we come to the end of this story, it's worth remembering that the true value of the 1954 D Lincoln penny is not just measured in dollars. It carries the story of a growing nation, the everyday lives of millions of Americans, and the quiet artistry of coin design. The next time you see a simple wheat penny, take a closer look. You might be holding a small piece of history that has traveled through decades to reach your hand, still waiting to be noticed, studied, and appreciated. Most people would walk right past this penny without a second thought, Yet one small detail turned ordinary pocket change into one of the most famous and talked about coins in American history, and the surprising part is that many people still don't know exactly why. The coin we're talking about today is the 1955 no-mint mark Lincoln penny. At first glance, it looks simple, familiar, and almost boring. But behind that copper surface is a story of human error, history, and chance that forever changed the world of coin collecting. This penny has been searched for in jars, drawers, and old collections for decades. And the reason is not hype. It's history. The 1955 Lincoln penny was produced in the middle of a powerful era in the United States. America was rebuilding, growing, and stepping confidently into the modern age. Cars were bigger, families were expanding, and everyday money passed through millions of hands without anyone thinking twice. The Lincoln cent had already been in circulation for nearly half a century by then, honoring Abraham Lincoln, one of the most respected figures in American history. By 1955, the design was deeply familiar to Americans, which is exactly why what happened next was so unexpected. This penny was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which is why it has no mint mark. At the time, Philadelphia pennies did not carry a letter under the date. That missing mark is normal for the year and not what makes the coin special. The real story begins during the minting process itself. Coins are made using metal dies that press the design onto blank copper planchets. In 1955, something went wrong during this process. A die used to strike pennies was misaligned when it received its design, creating what collectors now call a double die. That error meant the design elements on the coin were accidentally stamped twice, slightly offset from each other. When those flawed dies went into production, thousands of pennies were struck before the mistake was noticed. These coins were then released into circulation like any other penny, mixed into everyday change, spent at stores, and dropped into pockets. No alarms were raised. No announcement was made. The mistake simply escaped into the world. What makes the 1955 no-mint mark Lincoln penny so special is how visible the error is. On the most famous version, the doubling is bold and dramatic. The date appears doubled. The word liberty looks like it's vibrating. Even the motto, "In God We Trust," shows clear separation. This is not the kind of error you need a microscope to see. People noticed it almost immediately once the coins started showing up in change.at first. Many thought the coins were damaged or fake. But collectors quickly realized this was something else entirely. This was not wear, not post-mint damage, and not a trick. It was a genuine mint error created during production at the United States Mint itself. That realization changed everything. The penny is made primarily of copper, giving it the warm reddish tone associated with classic American cents. On the front, Lincoln's portrait faces right, dignified and calm. On the back, you'll see the wheat ears design, which is why collectors often call these wheat pennies. That design was used from 1909 through 1958, making the 1955 penny part of the final chapter of that era. Not every 1955 penny is valuable. This is a critical point. The vast majority of 1955 no-mint mark pennies are common and worth only a small amount above face value. What collectors are searching for is the famous 1955 double die obverse. That specific variety is what transformed this coin into a legend. So why is this penny rare or valuable? The answer lies in visibility, survival, and demand. Although thousands were likely struck, many were spent and worn down before anyone realized their significance. Others were pulled from circulation early and saved. Over time, collectors aggressively searched for them, driving demand higher and higher. Today, genuine examples are far scarcer than people assume. Value depends heavily on condition. A heavily worn example with visible doubling can still be worth thousands of dollars. Coins in better condition can sell for tens of thousands. In exceptional cases, pristine examples have sold at auction for over $100,000. These prices are not guesses. They are real sales documented by major auction houses and collectors. One reason this coin remains so popular is that the doubling is dramatic. Many other double die coins exist, but the 1955 stands out because you don't need expert training to appreciate it. Even non-collectors can see that something is different. That visual impact makes the coin exciting and approachable. Of course, popularity brings risk. Because the 1955 double die penny is so famous, It has also become one of the most counterfeited coins in American numismatics. Some fakes are made by altering normal 1955 pennies. Others use added doubling or tooling to mimic the real thing. Knowing how to identify an authentic example is essential. A genuine 1955 double die will show strong, even doubling that looks like two impressions, not smeared or distorted metal. The letters will appear clearly separated, not flattened or scratched. The doubling should be consistent across the date and lettering, not random. Many fake coins show doubling only in one area or display signs of tampering under magnification. Professional authentication is always recommended for a coin of this value. Reputable grading services can confirm whether a coin is genuine and provide a certified holder that protects it. This step alone can make a massive difference in market value and buyer confidence. There are also many fun and surprising facts surrounding this penny. When news of the error first spread, some cigarette companies reportedly offered the coins as promotional prizes. People searched their change obsessively, hoping to find one. Newspapers even ran stories about the strange penny that looked like it had been printed twice. Another fascinating detail is that the mint did not intentionally create this error, yet it became one of the most famous coins they ever produced. It's a reminder that even highly controlled systems are still run by humans, and human mistakes can sometimes create history. Collectors love this coin today because it represents everything that makes coin collecting exciting. It's not just about age or metal, it's about story. The 1955 double die penny connects everyday life with rare chance. It reminds people that something extraordinary can hide in the most ordinary places. This penny also serves as a gateway coin. Many collectors say it was the first rare coin they ever learned about. It sparks curiosity and encourages people to look more closely at their change. That sense of discovery is powerful and lasting. Even today, people still check old penny jars hoping to find one. While the odds are slim, the possibility remains. And that possibility keeps the legend alive. As we reach the end of this story, the 1955 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny stands as more than just copper and design. It's a symbol of chance, history, and the thrill of discovery. A tiny mistake that slipped into circulation and went on to capture the imagination of generations. So the next time you see a simple penny, remember this. Somewhere out there, an ordinary-looking coin once changed everything. And if history has taught collectors anything, it's that the most valuable stories often start with the smallest details. Imagine holding a penny that looks ordinary at first glance, yet quietly carries a story of mid-century America, post-war optimism, and hidden collector interest. A coin so common that millions once passed through everyday hands, yet today the right example can stop a collector in their tracks. That coin is the 1956 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny, and its story is far more interesting than its 1-cent face value suggests. The 1956 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny is a United States 1-cent coin struck in the mid-1950s. When people say no-mint mark, they mean something very specific. It tells us exactly where this coin was made and hints at why so many Americans still find these pennies tucked away in jars, drawers, and old collections. While it may not sound exciting at first, this penny represents a powerful moment in U.S. history and holds surprising value for collectors who know what to look for. To understand this coin, we need to travel back to 1956. America was in the middle of a booming post-World War II era. Families were growing, suburbs were expanding, and everyday commerce relied heavily on small change. Pennies were used constantly for newspapers, candy, gas station purchases, and school lunches. The U.S. needed enormous quantities of 1-cent coins to keep the economy moving smoothly. That is why, in 1956, the United States Mint produced a massive number of Lincoln pennies. When a penny from this year has no mint mark, it means it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. At that time, Philadelphia did not place mint marks on pennies, so a blank space below the date is normal and expected. Far from being an error, the missing mint mark is actually an important clue to the coin's origin. The Lincoln cent design itself had already been part of American life for decades by 1956. The coin first appeared in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of Abraham Lincoln, making it the first U.S. coin to feature a real historical person. By the 1950s, Lincoln's portrait had become one of the most familiar images in the country, symbolizing honesty, unity, and perseverance. The 1956 penny follows the classic wheat cent design. On the front, you see Lincoln facing right, with the words "In God We Trust" above his head, "Liberty" to the left, and the date 1956 to the right. This simple design connected Americans to their past during a time of rapid modernization. On the back, two wheat stalks frame the words 1 cent and United States of America, a design that would soon disappear forever. That detail alone makes the 1956 penny special. It belongs to the final chapter of the wheat cent era. Just 2 years later, in 1959, the reverse design changed to the Lincoln Memorial. So the 1956 no-mint mark penny is part of the last generation of coins to carry the classic wheat ears that collectors love today. Now let's talk about what this coin is made of. The 1956 Lincoln penny is composed of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. This is important because modern pennies are mostly zinc, with only a thin copper coating. When you hold a 1956 penny, you are holding a coin with real copper weight and substance. Many collectors appreciate these older pennies not only for their history, but also for their rich color and solid feel. One of the most interesting things about the 1956 no-mint mark penny is that, while it is common in worn condition, it becomes much more desirable as the quality improves. Millions were struck, but most were heavily used. Finding one with sharp details, full wheat lines, and original color is far more difficult than people realize. There are also small variations and errors that collectors watch closely. Some 1956 pennies show doubled lettering, especially in the date or the word "Liberty." Others may have off-center strikes, weak strikes, or die cracks. These are not mistakes made by people after the coin left the mint. They happen during the minting process itself, making each error coin unique. This brings us to the big question many people ask. Why would a penny like this be valuable at all? The answer lies in condition, rarity within condition, and collector demand. A heavily worn 1956 no-mint mark penny might be worth just a few cents, but a well-preserved example can be worth many times more. Coins that remain in uncirculated condition, meaning they were never used in everyday transactions, are especially prized. These coins often show full luster, sharp edges, and no wear on Lincoln's face or coat. In higher mint state grades, a 1956 no-mint mark penny can sell for impressive prices. At auction, certified examples in top condition have sold for hundreds of dollars. In rare cases, pennies with strong red color and exceptional strikes have reached even higher prices when collectors compete for the best available specimens. Error coins from this year can also command strong premiums, depending on how dramatic and clear the error is. Collectors love real stories, and the 1956 penny has plenty. Imagine a roll of brand new pennies pulled from circulation in the 1950s and stored away in a drawer for decades. Those coins may now look almost exactly as they did the day they were minted. When examples like that appear at auction, they attract serious attention. Of course, value brings another concern. How do you know if your 1956 no-mint mark penny is real? First, check the weight. A genuine copper penny from this era should weigh about 3.11 grams. If it feels unusually light, it may not be authentic. Next, look closely at the details. The lettering should be clear, not blurry. Lincoln's portrait should show defined lines in the hair and coat. The color can also tell a story. Original copper pennies often develop a natural brown or reddish tone over time. Coins that look unnaturally bright or shiny may have been cleaned. Cleaning a coin can actually reduce its value, so collectors usually prefer natural surfaces, even if they show age. Another tip is magnet testing. A genuine 1956 penny should not be attracted to a magnet. If it sticks, something is wrong. For valuable examples, professional grading services can authenticate and grade the coin, giving buyers and sellers confidence. There are also fun facts that make this penny even more interesting. In 1956, Elvis Presley was dominating the music charts, Route 66 was buzzing with road trips, and televisions were becoming common in American homes. The same penny you might find today once jingled in the pockets of people living through that cultural shift. Another surprising detail is how many of these pennies were saved unintentionally. Because wheat pennies looked different from newer designs, people often pulled them from circulation when the Lincoln Memorial reverse appeared in 1959. This means many 1956 pennies survived simply because they looked old-fashioned, Collectors today are drawn to the 1956 no-mint mark penny for several reasons. It represents the end of an era, both in design and composition. It connects directly to American daily life in the 1950s, and it offers a realistic entry point into coin collecting, where even beginners can search their change and potentially discover something meaningful. For experienced collectors, the challenge lies in finding the best examples. For new collectors, the thrill comes from learning how something so small can carry so much history. Every scratch, every shine, every subtle variation tells part of a larger story. As you think about the 1956 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, remember this: coins are more than money. They are time capsules. This penny has survived economic booms, cultural revolutions, and generations of use. It may have bought a soda, paid for a newspaper, or sat quietly in a jar for half a century, so the next time you see an old penny, take a closer look. That simple copper coin might be a survivor from 1956, still whispering stories of America's past. And who knows, the 1-cent piece you almost overlooked could be the most fascinating coin in your collection, waiting for you to discover its true story. What if I told you that a single penny you might have seen 100 times could quietly carry a story of Cold War America, everyday pockets, and hidden surprises that collectors still search for today? The 1957 no-mint mark Lincoln penny looks ordinary at first glance, but once you understand its story, you may never see loose change the same way again. The coin we're talking about today is the 1957 Lincoln wheat penny with no mint mark. That simple phrase, no mint mark, already tells us something important. It means this penny was struck at the main United States Mint in Philadelphia, where coins traditionally carried no mint mark at all. For millions of Americans in the late 1950s, this penny was just part of daily life. It bought small treats, dropped into piggy banks, and passed through countless hands without anyone stopping to think about it. Yet decades later, collectors look at this same coin with very different eyes. To understand the 1957 penny, we need to step back into its time. The year 1957 was a moment of tension and optimism in American history. The Cold War was shaping global politics, the space race was beginning, and American industry was booming. The U.S. Mint was producing coins in huge quantities to keep up with a growing economy and population. Pennies were especially important because they were used constantly, and the Lincoln cent was already one of the most recognizable coins in the country. The Lincoln penny itself had been around since 1909, introduced to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. By 1957, the design was familiar to nearly everyone. On the front or obverse was the profile of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner. His calm expression, strong jawline, and steady gaze symbolized unity and strength. On the back, or reverse, were 2 wheat ears framing the words 1 cent and United States of America. This wheat design would soon disappear, but in 1957 it was still very much part of American coinage. The 1957 penny was made primarily of copper. Specifically, it was about 95% copper, with the remaining 5% made up of tin and zinc. This gave the coin its warm reddish color when new, a color that many collectors still love today. Over time, exposure to air and handling caused many of these pennies to darken to brown or develop interesting tones. That natural aging process is one reason no 2 old pennies look exactly alike. In terms of production, the Philadelphia Mint struck hundreds of millions of 1957 pennies. That might make you wonder how such a common coin could possibly be interesting or valuable. The answer lies in condition, details, and small mistakes that slipped through the system. While most 1957 pennies are worth only a little more than face value, certain examples stand out dramatically. One of the first things collectors look for is condition. A 1957 penny that has been heavily circulated will show wear on Lincoln's hair, cheek, and coat. The wheat ears on the back may look flat, and the lettering may be less sharp. These coins are very common and usually worth just a few cents. But a penny that was never heavily used, one that still shows strong detail and original luster, is a different story. Coins in high-grade condition, especially those with bright red copper color, can be worth significantly more. Errors are another major source of interest. During the minting process, coins were struck at incredible speeds, and mistakes occasionally happened. Some 1957 pennies show doubled letters or numbers, where parts of the design appear slightly repeated. Others may have off-center strikes, where the design is not perfectly aligned on the coin. There are also cases of die cracks or small raised lines caused by damaged dies. While not every error adds value, certain types are highly sought after by collectors. One of the most talked about varieties involves doubling on the date or lettering. Even subtle doubling can make a coin much more interesting, especially if it is clear under magnification. Collectors often use simple tools like a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe to inspect their pennies closely. What looks normal to the naked eye can reveal hidden details when viewed up close. So why does the lack of a mint mark matter? For modern coins, mint marks help identify where a coin was made. In 1957, Philadelphia coins carried no mint mark at all, while other mints like Denver used a small letter. The no mint mark itself does not automatically make the coin rare, but it does confirm its origin. For collectors who specialize in Philadelphia issues or complete year sets, that detail is important. When it comes to real-world values, most 1957 no-mint mark pennies are affordable and accessible, which is part of their charm. Circulated examples may sell for a few cents to $1. Uncirculated coins with full red color can sell for several dollars or more. Exceptional examples, graded by professional services and preserved in near-perfect condition, have sold for much higher prices at auctions. Coins with confirmed and desirable errors can sometimes reach into the hundreds or even thousands of dollars, depending on the type and clarity of the mistake. Collectors love real stories, and auction records provide just that. Over the years, high-grade 1957 pennies have appeared in major coin auctions and drawn strong interest. These coins stand out because they look almost exactly as they did the day they left the mint. Their surfaces are clean, their details sharp, and their color vibrant. Seeing such a coin is like holding a small, untouched piece of the 1950s in your hand. Of course, with valuable coins comes the risk of counterfeits or altered pieces. Fortunately, the 1957 penny is relatively easy to authenticate if you know what to look for. Start with the weight. A genuine 1957 copper penny should weigh about 3.11 grams. Significant differences can be a red flag. Next, examine the details. Lincoln's portrait should be well defined, and the wheat ears should show clear lines. Poorly made fakes often have soft or blurry details. Also pay attention to the surface. Authentic coins will show natural wear or aging consistent with their age. Artificial toning or unusual textures can indicate tampering. If you believe you found a valuable error or high-grade coin, professional grading services can provide authentication and a reliable assessment of condition. There are also some fun and surprising facts about the 1957 penny that many people don't know. For example, this coin was made just 1 year before the wheat design was replaced by the Lincoln Memorial Reverse in 1959. That makes the 1957 penny part of the final chapter of the classic wheat cent era. For collectors, coins from the end of a design series often carry special appeal. Another interesting detail is how many of these pennies still exist today. Because they were made of copper and valued only at face value for so long, many were saved in jars, drawers, and collections without much thought. Today, people still discover them in old coin rolls, inherited collections, or even in everyday change. That sense of discovery is a big part of what keeps collectors searching. Collectors also love the 1957 penny because it represents a moment of stability before major changes. Just a few decades later, the metal composition of pennies would change, and copper cents would become a thing of the past. Holding a 1957 penny is a reminder of a time when even the smallest coins were made with substantial amounts of copper. For new collectors, this coin is an excellent entry point. It's affordable, widely available, and full of learning opportunities. You can practice grading, searching for errors, and understanding how condition affects value, all without needing a large budget. For experienced collectors, finding a top-quality example or a rare error variety remains an exciting challenge. As we reach the end of this story, it's worth remembering that the true value of the 1957 no-mint mark Lincoln penny isn't just measured in dollars. It's measured in history, curiosity, and the thrill of looking closely at something ordinary and discovering that it's not so ordinary after all. The next time you see an old penny, take a moment to really look at it. You might be holding a small piece of America's past, quietly waiting to tell its story. Imagine reaching into a jar of old pennies, pulling one out at random, and realizing it could be hiding a story from the final years of an era that no longer exists. A story struck in copper, passed quietly through millions of hands, and almost forgotten. Today, we're uncovering the surprising history and hidden intrigue behind the 1958 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny. At first glance, the 1958 Lincoln penny looks ordinary, small, brown, and familiar. But this coin represents the closing chapter of a design that Americans had seen in their pockets for nearly half a century. When you understand what it is, when it was made, and what makes certain examples special, this humble penny becomes a fascinating piece of American history. The 1958 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny was produced in the United States during a time of confidence and change. If there is no mint mark under the date, that tells us this coin was struck in Philadelphia, the main mint facility of the country at the time. For decades, Philadelphia pennies did not carry a mint mark, making no mint mark a normal but important detail for collectors. This penny features the portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front, a design first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of his birth. By 1958, Americans had grown up seeing Lincoln's face on the penny. It was familiar, trusted, and symbolic of national unity. The year 1958 itself is important. This was the final year of the famous wheat cent design. In 1959, the reverse would change to the Lincoln Memorial, ending an era that had lasted almost 50 years. That makes the 1958 penny the last of its kind, the final issue of the Wheat Penny series. To understand why this matters, you have to look back at post-war America. The late 1950s were a time of growth and optimism. Families were buying homes, cars were bigger and shinier, and pocket change flowed freely through everyday life. Pennies were used constantly, tossed into jars, drawers, and cash registers without a second thought. Most people never imagined that one day collectors would carefully examine these same coins. The metal composition of the 1958 penny is another important detail. It is made of 95% copper and 5% zinc and tin. This high copper content gives the coin its warm reddish color when new and is one reason older pennies feel heavier than modern ones. Many collectors today appreciate these copper cents not just for their history, but for the way they were made. The design itself is simple but iconic. On the front, Lincoln faces to the right, with the words "In God We Trust" above his head. The word "Liberty" appears to the left, and the date, 1958, is to the right. On the back, two wheat stalks frame the words 1 cent and United States of America, with E pluribus unum above. This design symbolized growth, agriculture, and prosperity. Most 1958 no-mint mark pennies were produced in very large numbers. Millions were struck and released into circulation. Because of this, the average circulated example is not rare. You can still find worn 1958 pennies today in old collections or inherited jars, usually worth only a small amount above face value. So why do collectors still care about this coin? The answer lies in condition and in errors. A 1958 penny that survived in excellent condition, with strong details and original color, is far more desirable than a heavily worn one. Coins that were saved early and never spent can show bright red surfaces, sharp lettering, and clear wheat lines. These high-quality examples can be worth many times more than a typical circulated penny. Even more exciting are the rare error coins from this year. The most famous is the 1958 double die obverse penny. On these rare pieces, parts of the date and lettering appear doubled, especially noticeable on the words, "In God We Trust," and the date itself. This doubling happened during the die-making process, not from damage after the coin was struck. These double die pennies are extremely rare and highly sought after. When authenticated examples appear at major auctions, they often sell for impressive amounts, sometimes reaching tens of thousands of dollars depending on condition. Stories of collectors discovering one in an old collection continue to fuel excitement around this date. There are also other minor errors collectors look for, such as off-center strikes, clipped planchets, or weak strikes. While not as valuable as the famous double die, these errors still add interest and value to the coin. Real auction records show that top-quality 1958 pennies with exceptional color and preservation can sell for hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Error coins, especially the double die obverse, have reached much higher prices when certified by professional grading services. Knowing how to identify a genuine 1958 no-mint mark penny is important, especially as values increase. First, check the date carefully. The numbers should be clear and evenly shaped. Next, look below the date. If there is no letter, that indicates a Philadelphia strike. Then examine the overall appearance. Genuine coins will show natural wear patterns and consistent metal color. Be cautious of altered coins. Some people attempt to add doubling or modify dates to imitate rare varieties. A real doubled die will show clear, rounded doubling that looks part of the design, not scratched or flattened. When in doubt, experienced collectors rely on professional grading services to confirm authenticity. One surprising fact about the 1958 penny is how many people unknowingly spent valuable examples. Before collectors widely understood error coins, double die pennies were often used as regular change. Some were lost forever, worn down beyond recognition. That loss is part of what makes surviving examples so special today. Another fun detail is that the 1958 penny marks the end of an artistic era. The wheat design connected Americans to their agricultural roots, something the country was slowly moving away from as cities grew and industries expanded. Holding this coin is like holding the final page of a long-running story. Collectors love the 1958 no-mint mark Lincoln penny because it sits at a crossroads of history. It is common enough to be accessible, yet it offers the thrill of discovery. Anyone can search through old pennies and dream of finding a rare error or a pristine example. This coin also appeals to collectors who enjoy completing sets. As the last wheat penny, it feels like a natural stopping point, a satisfying conclusion to decades of coinage history. Behind every 1958 penny is a journey. It may have bought a newspaper, jingled in a child's pocket, or sat untouched in a drawer for generations. Each one carries silent evidence of the time it lived. So the next time you see a simple brown penny dated 1958, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a closer look. You might be holding the final echo of the wheat penny era, a small copper witness to American history, and possibly, if luck is on your side, something far more valuable than it appears. Sometimes the most ordinary objects hold the most extraordinary stories, and sometimes those stories are hiding right in the palm of your hand.